Hi, I'm T, and I'm going to listen to some music, and some special music at that, because today is the day that I take the plunge, and after many, many years, I guess, at this point, and recommendations, am finally checking out Quadeca through the latest release as of this date, Scrapyard, I believe is the name. I know very little about Quadeca. All I know is that there was a bit of like a YouTube kind of origin story, but it seems that he's been able to break out of that kind of category. I guess YouTube artists, there's more misses than hits. So it does sound like despite those beginnings, he has well and truly transitioned into being taken seriously as a musician. This one's also a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm more of a indie rock, alt pop kind of person, but I have dabbled in hip hop adjacent stuff in the past. Like I've dipped my toes into Brockhampton. I've gone down the Tyler the Creator rabbit hole, the JPEG Mafia rabbit hole. Also, I guess Death Grips, as much as you can kind of barely consider them hip hop. And also, along those lines, I did notice the Kevin Abstract feature on the album, which has very, very much piqued my interest, but we'll get to it at the end. Without further ado, let's give this one a spin. First up, track 1, Dustcutter. Very mumbly. Super lo-fi. I don't know if I'll be crucified for this comparison or if it's apt. If I say Drain Gang, will any of the audience know what I'm talking about? I got a little bit of like Blade or Echo 2K kind of delivery and cadence in just like the higher register kind of sing rapping a little bit. Very mumbly, which I get the sense is intentional, maybe for this track, maybe for Quadeca's entire discography, who knows, we'll see. It did sound very kind of muffled and lo-fi, and that kind of, again, all sounded very intentional. Lots of like snippets of sampled sounds, like the beat had this like, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was a sampled sound that was being used to act as the core of the beat, and then a bit of piano in there as well. I just got a very kind of emotional, like emo kind of vibe from that. I'm not quite sure what to think. That was like a pleasant listen, but I would need to hear how that sounds in the context of the rest of the album before I kind of give a full thought on it. Let's move on to track 2, A La Carte, featuring Brackens. Not familiar with that artist. Let's see.
My favorite poem was the one I read to you. Heart, you can have my tongue, just promise you'll take it a la carte. They got eternal life for the pain God. A joke that wasn't funny cause it's true. How many times I couldn't count? Cause it gets so deep, I go so deep, I'm never pulling out. It ain't you, I'm just caught up in my own shit, licking wounds. Just don't take it out to heart.
Okay, I'm getting a bit more of an idea for what kind of sound we're going for. I think the more I listen to it, the more the Blade and Echo 2K comparison continues to ring true. So like lots of smooth, like filtered high register synth. It makes it feel very airy and like whimsical, but the lush kind of reverb, the moody kind of not too hard-hitting beat, but a good amount of bass to accompany it kind of gives me that lo-fi, modern, indie kind of hip-hop sound. And then lyrically, I was kind of getting images of maybe like a childhood crush or like just a relationship in a very kind of juvenile state. Poems on the tongue of my shoe. Like, are we doing this at school or something? I don't know. And then also a lot of metaphor, and hence the title, to like meals and food. So a la carte, maybe like take a part of me, but don't go too far and take more than I'm giving you. Like being a bit vulnerable there. I think I did hear the breakins feature like towards the middle of the track, so a little bit of variance in the vocal. Not familiar again with the artist, but I have heard that kind of cadence and that kind of like tone before, and I think it contrasts fairly well to. I will assume it's Quadeca's voice at the start. Yeah, interesting track. Once again, I'll need to kind of understand how these two fit into the wider context of the album. Let's see where we go with Pretty Privilege.
I wanna know what you mean. 'Cause when you said I was pretty, I'm the only one still home and it hits me.
I like the use of the like distorted electric guitar key change, piano. Okay, we went somewhere different with that one. So first thing I kind of that jumped out at me was I like the use of that distorted kind of, I think it's a 3 note riff. It's pretty simple. I like the use of that distorted guitar riff as like part of the core beat. I think that's really cool. And it adds to that kind of very genre bending kind of emo hip hop tinge. And it also just, as I'm going through the album and as I'm listening to more Quadeca, I'm getting a lot more like leans into like a really ambient kind of, I think the term might be diegetic, where it's like sounds that would be there in the place that this song is taking place in, incorporated in via samples. I think that's interesting and it adds some space to the track. We had that a cappella break, which was an interesting moment, and then towards the end we got that key change, and then we moved into a piano kind of only section, and then drums came in and we picked back up and we had this kind of like moaning vocal. Lyrically, this one again, it sounds quite juvenile still, and it's kind of really focusing on like insecurity. So questioning like why did you say I was pretty, and kind of going down that line. All I could ask you was why do you notice something new, and like doing things and changing who we are to appease this other person. As I once again continue going through the lyrics, I keep getting a very kind of like emo. When I say emo, I mean like more Midwest emo, like a really pathetic kind of like I am dirt kind of image, which is interesting. It's interesting to hear that in like a hip hop context. Let's move on to track 4, Easier.
I want you 'cause you're easy, early, open arms.
Bit of flute in a hip hop song.
Carry me from above. All your sense in a world. Acknowledge you. I miss being alone the way I was alone before all the resentment had gotten through. I want you 'cause you're easier.
Another different direction. Just when I thought I was building up a profile in my head, we get a switch. In some ways, but not in others. So, and I feel kind of stupid for saying this because I'm a new fan of this other artist, but I've recently, in the past like 2 years, become a fan of Porter Robinson's, his most recent works. This sounds very Porter Robinson nurture, like musically. That kind of like a lush, open, like acoustic instrumentation, very plucky arpeggios, and like a singing vocal, like a very vulnerable singing vocal. Two things I'll notice. One, heavy use of auto tune, which, you know, It's a staple of modern hip hop and especially bedroom production. And on the line of bedroom production, when Quadeca's vocal came in, that mic, man, that mic is shit. he's on the Apple EarPods mic or the Bluetooth headset mic. Maybe it's intentional. I guess it does add quite a DIY sound to it. Lyrically, still going down the line of pathetic kind of emo building, but the spin of like it's more of an introspection here rather than a like dynamic between me and you. It's I want you because you're easier. That kind of to me is more of a reflection on the person saying it than the person that they're saying it about. Like I am settling for what I know I can get, which kind of downplays your potential, but also kind of makes it seem like you're a bit of a dick because you're like kind of casting someone in such a hierarchical way. Yeah, interesting bit of lyricism. I wasn't sure that's where we were going by the title, but it makes perfect sense. So let's move on to number 5, Even If I Tried.
Yeah, if I shoot it down, I swear I won't miss. Is even if I lie, you know who it is. Yeah, if I shoot it down, I swear I won't miss.
It's a lot of like chaos and dissonance. Now we're on the beach. Wow, okay, we did not end where we started at all. Okay, this is keeping me on my toes now. I'm engaged. We started off so like chaotic and dissonant and like all of these instruments coming in, playing like in different keys and clashing. And then all of a sudden, we had that for a while. We moved to like a very kind of laid back, like reverb, like guitar lead, like on the beach kind of sound. And then we had like a bit of a experimental shift, and then like some pads came in and like fattened up that ambience. And then we had the lead out, which is like heavy pad and then heavy guitar, and it kind of went ballady almost a little bit towards the end. It went a little bit Tyler the Creator, dare I say. I think there's probably going to be more instances of that later on the album. But that was interesting because all of that happening in the background, and then we get just such a very kind of simple, like stereotypical, like braggadocious, like I'm all this, like I'm the shit kind of lyricism that kind of just like carried through while all of this shit was happening in the background. I wouldn't be surprised if, again, that contrast was intentional. Interesting. Yeah, but I thought that was a fun one. Let's go on to track 6. What's it to him? I'd like to know. We're getting Brit rock. Wow, okay, we really broke out of that like SoundCloud rapper kind of box that I feel like some of the starting tracks were loosely in. I got very like old-timey, like Beatles or pre-Beatles, like recorded to tape, compressed to shit vocals. This did to me sound a lot more like a rock track, like an indie rock track, than whatever I thought this was going to be at the start. I do like that he loves his guitars throughout this record. I do myself also love my guitars. But it's nice to hear such a layered guitar sounds. I also really like the texture that we're getting, like the beat at one point, like was made up of only like scratches, like mechanical clicks and pauses and beeps. I think that's really cool. Reminds me a little bit of like a postal service kind of vibe. But yeah, I thought that was, once again, I will say at the very least, all of these tracks are interesting. That was a nice one. I'll move right on to 7. You Don't Know Me Like That. We're pitched up. That tempo boost at the end. I liked where we were going there, actually. I want to see if we go there in the next song. You know what I'm getting reminded of? Another Porter Robinson comparison. And again, I'm sorry if I'm late to all of this kind of style of music, but I'm experiencing things in the way that I'm experiencing them. So you'll get them through my filter. The sound that Porter Robinson was trying to go for on his latest album, Smile, especially in songs like Kitsune Maison, I think it's Kitsune Maison Freestyle, where he's like really trying to go for that kind of like like kind of like modern, in like an endearing way, right? And then also lyrically, and like where we kind of went with a little bit of the instrumentation, the song Everything to Me, I think it's one of the closing tracks on that album. Yeah, I really got reminded of that, which is good for me because I really like that album. I also, like, in the delivery, am getting a little bit of 100 Gex, like the way that they do their like stereotypical hip hop like ad lib mimicry, which is interesting. I wonder if that's intentional or if I wonder like that's just passively how he delivers his vocals. Yeah, that was a pleasant track to listen to. I like the instrumental layering. I liked what the beat was doing. And then, like I mentioned, I like where we were kind of going in the end there. Lyrically, I got the sense that we're kind of like hiding our true selves and like, oh, you never really got the real me. But the mood of the song kind of evokes to me that might not even be 100% true. Like, we might be putting up a front of you didn't get the real me, but then that's just also us lying to ourselves, maybe. I thought that was a pleasant track. I like that one. Number 8, I Make It Look Effortless. Is that a banjo? Or an out-of-tune guitar?
She thinks she in love, but she only half met me. She don't get the sentiment. You are lately, I must be out my mind. Effortless. Make it look effortless.
Shorter track, more of a transitionary kind of track. I thought we had a very interesting start. Like, we didn't carry on from that upbeat kick in that last song, but that's okay. We got a weird like banjo or like out of tune rickety guitar sound instead, and then we kind of just played with that a little bit. And then at the end, I liked how the beat kind of like loosened up for a second and then kicked back in, and then everything came together. I thought that was a really good kind of peak at the end of the track. We're very much following on from the themes of the previous track, like she doesn't know the real me kind of thing. She's only half met me kind of thing. I'm not showing my true self kind of thing. Judging by the name of the next track, maybe that will carry on. Way Too Many Friends, track 9. Pots and Pans.
I got way too many friends. I got way too many friends. It's so similar, a visitor who never got a chance. Start calling my bluff if you want to make amends. Don't call you enough, not as much as I intend.
I really am starting to like what Quadeca is doing instrumentally on this album. Like, we started with like a kind of cobbled together drum beat with like what sounded like pots and pans and stuff, like a very DIY kind of sound. And then the guitar like carried through from the rest of the album. And then we got like a flute layer towards the end. Like, we keep getting such great instrumental texture. And I think that's really kind of filling in a picture or filling in a void that's left by some quite simplistic lyrics. And I'm not saying simplistic lyrics like in a bad way. It's just the way that it comes together makes it okay that they're simplistic and that we're repeating a lot of lines and stuff. But lyrically, this track explored something else that's interesting as well. Like, we're getting a lot of self-deprecation throughout this album, but we're getting it through different lenses. In this one, I'm getting like, I'm not the greatest friend. I'm not great at keeping up with social obligations. I kind of feel like I should say that I miss you when like really inside I don't. And that's a very kind of real conflicting feeling. And I think we touch on it in an interesting way. And then we kind of fade out at the end with the like friends like reverberated line that gets repeated a few times. Cool track. Next up, Guess Who? I'm gonna guess Quadeca. Really cheesy synth.
Walk straight into the venue, had to go through the back. And I got lost on rebuilding, I popped down the ceiling and made it a liminal space.
Liminal space?
Yeah, true, that's enough to make somebody disappear when I say tie dye. Set my ID, cause I drew away before I even turned 19. Get them out at the in and out, in a dry clean, drop room packed out with the fans. Never backed out on my plans. Guess who? Walked into the venue, had to go through the back. Guess who? Guess who? Guess who?
Very much an electronic track. We have deviated from some of the previous notions and themes that we were putting down. We're back kind of in braggadocious mode. We kind of went a little bit into that earlier on in the album, but I like how we mix like a I'm the shit, like look at all this like impressive stuff that's happening to me and that I'm doing, but we're mixing it with like a very real kind of one of the lines was, my career's weird. Real snippets about Quadeca's probably like non-standard rise to fame and like the strange little things that he has to be conscious of and that are like true only for him, and like maybe he doesn't relate to his peers quite as much. Yeah, I thought that was quite cool, and we got like a much more like technical flow, and like we got some very clever lyrical quips there. This kind of also made me feel a little bit more kind of like Who Dat Boy Tyler, like maybe even pre Flower Boy Tyler, just in terms of vibes. I like the variants we're getting from Quadeca. This was pretty cool track, probably one of my favorites from the album so far. Let's move on to 11, Under My Skin. Back to the acoustic instrumentation.
Said I won't kill again, maybe I will repent. If you find me under your skin again, we can pretend that it would make too much sense.
We got quite a bit of duality in that track. So we started with a very kind of like in the room recording. Like, I even thought I heard someone like coughing in the background. Lots of a return to a lot of acoustic instrumentation once again. And then we got that like really processed kit, that a drum kit that came in to the forefront like kind of immediately. And then we transitioned into like way more digital, still very lo-fi back half of the track. And that's where we got a lot of the more kind of complex, longer lyrical lines. Lyrically, I'm kind of getting like we were together at one point and then we weren't together because of something that I did or like some way that I was. And then I put walls up and then you came back. And now I'm like wondering why you did that, but also really trying to express that I won't be the person that I was when things went wrong. I like the like little high register synth beepy line that we got towards the end of the track as well. I think that was a fun little sprinkle of sparkle, let's say. Track 12, Being Yourself.
I wanna switch your lens so you can see my friend. I want you to do your job. You want, they want. I wish you could be yourself. Wrong way, I don't wanna leave the hallway. I wish you could be yourself.
We got what sounded like less of an auto-tuned, like heavily pitch shifted vocal from Quadeca. It might have still been there, but it was a lot less prominent. But it was like very much a wash with reverb. We got a lot of like glitchy, like occasionally we'd get like a stutter in the production. So I think that really kind of added to the chaos and the tension in the track. And then towards the end, we just straight up like, I don't know if he dropped the mic somewhere and like threw it across the room or whatever, or just like turned up the gain really high. But we got a lot of clipping and a lot of artifacting and distorting. And I think that ties into the lyrical content here. And I was trying to figure out throughout the track, like, is this talking about looking at the self? So like reflecting light through a mirror and then like seeing an image of yourself. And then I want you to be yourself, you being me, but the way that I'm kind of articulating it is in the second person. And then at the end, I switch sides. I wish you could know how it felt to me. I was trying to figure out, is that like the self or is he talking about another person? Because I could see it both ways. If it's another person, it's just like a very kind of tense struggle of like, I wish you could be this thing and you're not, but then it's like maybe you're not because I'm not seeing you in the correct light kind of way. Got me questioning. I like that track. I liked the experimentation there, and I liked the kind of sonic chaos that we got. And I feel like that leads into the title of the next track pretty cleanly. 13, You Tried That Thing Where You're Human.
It's time to give up on being human. It's time to give up on being human. It's time. You did that thing where you're human. I'm gonna be something else.
I love this production.
I'm gonna be something else.
That was an amazing track. I loved that track. Part of it is because it reminded me a lot of the Postal Service, and specifically, member of the Postal Service. I forget his name, but he goes by the stage name Dentel. He does that very like clinical, warbly synth that like gets often pitch shifted up to key. There's a lot of glide in the way that he transitions between notes. It sounds very kind of bleepy and clinical, but it's also quite fuzzy and analog sounding. I don't know if this is making any sense, but I got that vibe in this song. And lyrically, it was like a very 2025 version of that, or 2024 when this record came out. Maybe even like a 2024 5 like OK Computer kind of track from Radiohead. We obviously get the comparison between being like a robot and not human, as like the two extremes, but really we're getting a story about like how I've got such a rigid defense mechanism. I dropped my guard one time and then I got burned. I did that thing where I was human, and now it's time to revert back to pre-human. But also the way that the track built up, it kind of went a little bit optimistic. Like we had a couple lyrics of "I tried my best, I did a good job, I'm free from here, I felt a thing and I learned a lot." But then we go back to, "I think it's time I stop being human." So we kind of go hopeful and positive and then slowly retreat back to melancholy. And then we get this like lush soundscape with very like natural sounds and uh lots of airy instrumentation that then gets immediately cut off. That part before it cuts off reminds me once again of the Porter Robinson album Nurture, which explores kind of similar-ish themes. And then we get that cut, and then we go back to this like very robotic sound, which makes me think like, oh, okay, we finally unplugged from the optimism and we are now robot mode completely. Super cool track. Next up, 14, Guide Dog, second to last track.
If I could, I would trade you my eye. How I describe you, you're not around. I'll be there myself. I want to be a guide dog.
Violins coming in.
My love songs don't seem to age well. Won't hurt me. I'll be there myself. Do you trust me to be a guide dog?
Didn't think we were gonna get an acoustic closer ballad from Quadeca, but that was a cute song. Coming back to kind of the building the you up as this like amazing thing that I pale in comparison to that very kind of emo imagery that we were getting earlier on in the album. But in the context now of an acoustic ballad, like a very kind of alt rock acoustic, kind of DIY scratchy guitars and a vocal that's not entirely, on pitch the whole time, but that's okay because we're indie. Yeah, that was a fun one. I liked how we kept it all acoustic. We got the violin that came in, and then when we had percussion, there was a little bit of just like tapping on the guitar for percussion, which was fun. Yeah, it was very much like a end of the night, end of the party kind of song. And weirdly enough, like it kind of does fit for an artist like Quadeca. Like if we were getting this song at the end of a Brockhampton album, which does sometimes have like a ballady song, but it's not acoustic, I think it'd be a bit of whiplash. But because we were getting it in the context of a lot of the kind of softer tones and the more moody tones that we got earlier on in the album, it fits pretty well. Yeah, and lyrically, like I think when Quadeca wants to get more poetic and more expressive with the lyrics, he's able to pull it off quite well. I did quite enjoy this. Last but not least, last track of the album, Texas Blue, featuring Kevin Abstract. Now it's Kevin Abstract of Brockhampton. It's been a little while since I've heard anything from Kevin Abstract, since it's been a couple of years since Brockhampton's last record, and that group is now Vapor, unfortunately. I did like some of Kevin's earlier solo work. I want to see what this feature sounds like, so let's get into it.
Second Becky G's X-rated preview. You like movies more than I do. Show me some photos and boxes of matches. I know.
They come together so well.
Who asked you? Bite my tongue. Go to explicit too. I'm going listen the second I give it. So I gotta give it to you. That silent treatment gets a little loud. Sound.
Clever lyric. I could so hear Bareface on this song as well. If he was on it, that would be great. Nice long fade out at the end of the song and the end of the album. Whew, I needed that. I needed a nice Kevin Abstract jam. It's been too damn long, Kevin. I know you've got something coming out soon, so I will potentially cover that as well. That was such a big song and such a hi-fi song, which is such whiplash versus the rest of the album, with the exception of the unveiled vocals in I think it was 13. You Tried That Thing Where You're Human. That felt to me like, again, like something that could have been on like a more refined version of Kevin Abstract's American Boyfriend album, which is one of his older solo projects from like almost 10 years ago now. That's crazy. That is to say, I really enjoyed it. And I really thought it was interesting how well, I guess Quadeca was there, like singing along with Kevin, and they were kind of having a bit of back and forth and a little bit of like layered co-delivery. They fit together so well. Like, I wonder, is this something that they're going to keep doing? I would like to see it. I thought that track was really nice. We got a very kind of like real, like 2025, like love kind of story. Just like snippets and a lot of imagery of like, we were at this place and this is what was going on and these were the sounds and the smells and all of that. And I miss the feeling that we had waking up next to you, colder than Texas blue. Like, I think Kevin's really good at that kind of lyricism, and I love that he brings that to the table here. I was not expecting this ending track. Like, I guess kind of, because I saw Kevin was on the song, but yeah, if you just gave me the album without any of the features, I would be like, nah, we're not going to end here, judging by where we've started. That being said, I've just heard my first Quadeca project, 15 tracks of Scrapyard. I think Quadeca is an artist that's showing me that he's got so many different ideas. He's so moody. He's sometimes so upbeat and like energy driven. He's so lo-fi and grungy and gritty, but also he can lift the veil and give you a song like You Try That Thing Where You're Human. I will be watching what Quadeca is doing from here on out. I'm interested. You've piqued my interest. And I think I'm probably not as big of a fan of the like kind of distorted mic, like mumbly hip hop stuff, but I know now that Quadeca is not just that. Even though we got a little bit of that earlier in the album, he is more than that, and he's bringing so much to the table. This was such a journey of a record. I guess lyrically, we kind of treaded on old ground through a few different angles and a few different perspectives. We got so much variance in the instrumental texture and the writing and the production styles and all of that. This was very cool. Very impressed with what I got from Quadeca. And like I said, I'm going to keep an eye out. With that, thank you for joining me. If you liked, engage with the video. Tell us something nice in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. If you don't, no harm done. In any case, I'll see you with the next one.